So, the question asks about the differences between basic research and applied research. Actually, both of them are important in research, but they are different in purpose, in the way we do them, and also in how they help us solve the problems. First, basic research. Sometimes we call it as pure research. It's more about understanding theories or ideas. The goal is not to solve a direct problem, but to learn something new. For example, researchers might study how students develop speaking skills or what makes them confident to speak. The result may not be used immediately in real life, but it helps us build a knowledge. Basic research usually happens in universities, and it is more theoretical. On the other hand, applied research is more practical. It tries to solve real problems in daily life. For example, in English teaching, applied research might focus on creating speaking materials to help students speak better. It often collects data from real places like schools. The results can be used right away, like materials, strategies, or solutions. For example, in my research, I choose applied research. My study is about designing English-speaking materials for students. It's an Islamic boarding school. At the school, students are expected to use English every day, but there are no speaking materials to guide them. So, I do a need analysis first, then I design materials that can help them use English in real situations. The final product can be used directly by students. So, this is applied research. If there is someone want to do basic research on the same topic, they might study things like what affects students' confidence to speak English in a boarding school, or how do teenagers develop speaking skills. These questions don't make a product, it's only help us understand the issue. So, basic research help us understand, while applied research helps us improve or solve a problem. Basic research gives us theories. Applied research use those theories to help people in real situations. For my study, applied research is more suitable because I want to make speaking materials that students can really use. I will explain how mixed method research gives a better understanding by combining qualitative and quantitative methods. In lesson 1, we learned that quantitative research uses numbers and statistics, while qualitative research focuses on experiences, opinions, and deeper meaning. When we combine them, we can understand a problem more fully. Quantitative data can tell us what is happening. For example, a questionnaire might show that many students feel speaking English is difficult, but that alone is not enough. Qualitative data, like interviews, can explain why they feel that way. Maybe they are shy, or they don't have enough vocabulary, or there are no speaking materials. So, when we use both methods together, we get two sides of the same story, the numbers and the reasons behind the numbers. This helps make the findings stronger and more complete. In my research, I want to design English-speaking materials for students at an Islamic boarding school. First, I can use a questionnaire to find out what speaking skills they need most. Then, I can interview them or their teachers to know what activities they like or what problems they face. When I combine these results, I can make better materials that match their real needs. So, mixed methods research helps us understand not only what is happening, but also why it happens. That is why it gives a more complete picture of complex that is why it gives a more complete picture of complex problems. I will explain why identifying a research problem is the foundation of the whole research process. In lesson 1, we learned that research always starts with a problem. If we don't know the problem clearly, we don't know what to study. So, a clear research problem gives direction and purpose. When the problem is clear, it helps us make focused research questions. For example, in my study, the problem is that students in an Islamic boarding school are expected to use English every day, but they don't have speaking materials. Because the problem is clear, my research questions can focus on what speaking needs they have, what activities they prefer, and what kind of materials will help them. The research problem also affects the methodology. Different problems need different approach. If we want to know students' experiences, we use qualitative methods like interviews. If we want to know how many students have the same problem, we use quantitative methods like questionnaire. Sometimes we combine both. So, a clear problem helps us decide what data to collect, how to collect it, and how to analyze it. It also helps us stay focused and not collect data that is not useful. In summary, defining the research problem is very important because it influences everything, the question we ask and the method we choose. Without a clear problem, the research will go in many directions and not be effective. With a clear problem, the research becomes meaningful and useful. Research problems come from personal experience, literature review, and theoretical gaps. First is personal experience. Sometimes we see problems in our daily life. For example, in my school, students are expected to speak English every day, but there are no speaking materials. So, I realized this is a real problem and it became a research topic. Second is literature review. When we read books and journals, we learn what other researchers have studied. We can see what has already been done and what is still missing. For example, many studies say speaking is difficult for students in boarding school, but only a few studies make real speaking materials for daily use. That means there is still a gap, so we can continue the study. Third is theoretical gaps. Sometimes a theory doesn't explain everything in real life. For example, communicative language teaching, or CLT, is a good theory, but we don't know much about how it works in Islamic boarding schools. So, this becomes another reason to do the new research. In my conclusion, personal experience gives us the real problems. Literature review shows what is already known, and theoretical gaps show what still needs to be studied. All of this helps us build a strong and meaningful research topic. Why a literature review is very important in our research. We have learned that a literature review is the base of any study. It helps us understand what other researchers have already found about our topic. So, our research is not standing alone, but connected to what people studied before. The literature review also helps us find research gaps. When we read different studies, we can see what is already known and what is still missing. For example, many studies say speaking is difficult for students in Islamic boarding schools, but not many studies make speaking materials for daily use. That gap becomes the reason why my study is needed. Another important function is building a theoretical framework. When we read theories like CLT, need analysis, or material development, we choose which theory will guide our study. The theoretical framework helps us explain our research steps and interpret our data. The literature review also guides our research questions and methods, because when we read how others did their studies, we can decide what tools and techniques fit with our research. So, literature review is very important because it gives background, finds research gaps, builds theory, and helps us plan the research clearly. A systematic review is the most formal. It follows strict steps for searching, selecting, and analyzing studies. The goal is to reduce bias and give clear results. This type is used when we want very strong evidence about a specific question. A semi-systematic review is less strict. It is used to study a broad topic or to understand how a field develops over time. It still has a structure, but it doesn't need to include every study. It is good for finding themes or trends. An integrative review mixes studies from different methods or fields. The goal is to combine ideas and create new understanding or a new framework. It is useful for complex topics because it looks at many perspectives. So the difference is mainly in how strict and how broad they are. Systematic is the strictest, semi-systematic is in the middle, and integrative is the most flexible. For my study, I use an integrative review because I want to combine different ideas from speaking skills, meta-analysis, and material development to support my research. Prisma, preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis, is used for systematic review. It has clear steps for finding, selecting, and reporting previous studies. It also has a flow chart showing how many studies were found and why some were removed. This makes the review open and easy to follow. Then Ramses, reporting standards for systematic evidence synthesis, is used for semi-systematic or realist reviews. It helps researchers explain how they collected the studies and how they found the themes. This makes the conclusion clear and more reliable. The integrative review guidelines is more flexible because it often includes different kinds of studies, but it still asks the researcher to explain how the studies were chosen and how the ideas were combined. This helps keep the review organized and trustworthy. So, these guidelines help make the literature review more transparent, more credible, and more careful. They show readers how the review was done so people can trust the results. We learned that a theoretical framework comes from existing theories made by experts. It explains how something works and help us understand the relationship between variables. It is usually used in quantitative research. For example, if we use CLT theory to explain how students learn speaking, that is a theoretical framework. A conceptual framework is more flexible. It is made by the researcher based on ideas from books, research, and personal understanding. It shows how the main concepts in the study are connected. It is usually used in qualitative or mixed method research. For example, in my study, I can connect need analysis, material design, and student context to show how I will develop speaking materials. This is a conceptual framework. So, the difference are theoretical framework comes from established theories. Conceptual framework is built by the researcher from different ideas, while theoretical is mostly for quantitative studies. Conceptual is mostly for qualitative or applied studies. It is important to know the difference because each one guides the study in a different way. If we choose the wrong type, the research can be unclear or confusing. When we choose the right one, our research becomes more logical and well organized. In lesson 5, we learned that IPO helps us show our research in a clear flow. Input means what we need at the beginning, like students, materials, or theories. Process means what we do in the study, such as need analysis, designing materials, or collecting data. Output means the results, like the final product or improvement in students' ability. IPO helps us because it shows how each part is connected. We can see how the inputs affect the process and how the process leads to the output. This makes the conceptual framework easier to understand and more organized. It also helps us evaluate the results. Since we know what output we expect, we can check later if the study was successful. For example, in my study, the input includes students' needs and CLT principles. The process is designing the speaking materials. The output is the material itself and better speaking skills. When the flow is clear like this, the research becomes more logical. So, IPO makes the conceptual framework stronger by helping us show the relationship and evaluate outcomes clearly. Why a framework needs both a diagram and a narrative? We have learned that a visual diagram helps people see the big picture. It shows how the key ideas or variables are connected. When we use rows or boxes, readers can easily understand the flow of the study. But the diagram is not enough. We also need a narrative to explain what each part means and how they are related. The narrative tells why those components are important and how the theory guides the research. So, the diagram gives a simple picture and the narrative gives deeper understanding. When we use both, our research becomes clearer and more trustworthy because we show the structure and also explain the logic behind it. Research design is like a plan. It tells us the big picture of the study, what type of research we will do, who the participants are, and how the study is organized. Research methodology is more detailed. It explains the tools and steps we will use, like questionnaire, interviews, how we collect the data, how we analyze it, and how we check validity. So, design answer, what is the plan? And methodology answer, how will we do it? We need to understand the relationship between them because the methodology must match the design. For example, if our design is qualitative, then our tools should also be qualitative, like interviews. If they don't match, the research becomes unclear and less credible. So, both helps us make research that is more valid and trustworthy. Here are the main stages in making a research design and why they are important. I will also relate them to my own research topic. First, we choose a research topic. For example, in my study, the topic is designing English-speaking materials for Islamic boarding school students. Choosing a clear topic helps keep the study focused. Second, we decide the research approach, qualitative, quantitative, or mixed. Because I want to understand students' needs and design materials, I use a mixed methods approach. Next, we choose the research method. In my case, I use R&D, research and development, because my goal is to create a product, the speaking materials. Then, we select the participants. For my study, the participants are students and English teachers at the boarding school. Choosing the right participants makes the research more valid. After that, we decide on the instruments, such as questionnaires and interviews. These tools help us find what students need in speaking activities. Finally, we plan how we will analyze the data. We plan how we will analyze the data. For example, questionnaire results may be counted quantitative and interview answer may be grouped into terms or qualitative. This helps us understand both the numbers and the deeper reasons behind them. All these steps make the research more valid, reliable, and usable. When the research design is clear, the study becomes strong and trustworthy. I will try to explain this in a simple way. In research, there are three important things that work together: systematic frameworks, quality standards, and philosophical foundation. First, philosophical foundations are like the basic beliefs behind our research. They help us decide how we see reality and knowledge. For example, some research believes knowledge comes from numbers, positivism, while others believe it comes from people's experiences, constructivism. So, our philosophy guides the way we choose our design and methods. Second, systematic frameworks help us plan the steps of the research. They give structure, so our work becomes organized. For example, if I design English-speaking materials for students in an Islamic boarding school, I follow clear stage: need analysis, designing materials, trying them, and revising. This makes the study more focused and easy to follow. Third, we have quality standards like validity, reliability, and objectivity. Validity means our tools really measure what we want to measure. Reliability means the results are consistent, while objectivity means we try to reduce personal bias. All three of these elements work together. Our philosophical view guides how we design the research. The framework helps us follow the steps in a clear way. and quality standards make sure the results are trustworthy. For example, in my study, I believe students improve speaking through real communication. So, I choose a qualitative or mixed methods approach. I follow a systematic framework such as collecting needs analysis data, designing materials, and evaluating them. Then I check quality by asking experts to validate my instrument and by analyzing data fairly. So, these three things interact to make the research strong, clear, and credible. In a research project, all components are connected and support each other. First, everything begins with identifying a research problem. This is important because if the problem is not clear, then the research will have no direction. For example, in my study, the problem is the students in an Islamic boarding school must or are expected to speak English in their daily life, but there are no speaking materials to support them. Second, after finding the problem, we do a literature review. This means we read previous studies to understand what other researchers have found. From the literature, we can see what has been done and what gaps still exist. For instance, many studies talk about speaking skills, but few discuss materials for Islamic boarding school context. So, the gaps become clear. Third, from the literature, we build a framework, either theoretical or conceptual. The framework helps explain the ideas or theories that guide the research. It also shows the variable and how they are connected. For example, I might use communicative language teaching as a theoretical basis for designing speaking materials. Fourth, after the framework is clear, we move to research design. This is like planning the research. We decide who the participants are, what data we need, and how to collect it. This makes the research more systematic and organized. Next is research methodology, where we apply the plan. Here, we explain methods, instruments, procedure, and data analysis. For example, I may use questionnaire for students and interview for teacher to understand their needs. Then, I design the speaking materials based on the results. All of these parts support each other. The problem leads to literature review. The literature review builds the framework. The framework guides the research design, and the design becomes the basis for the research methodology. Because each step is connected, the research becomes more systematic and credible. It also contributes to the field because it is answer a real problem and it is supported by theory and previous studies. In my study, the process helps me produce speaking materials that match students' needs and support English use in the boarding school environment. So, this whole chain ensures that the research gives meaningful knowledge and benefits for others.